Hey there. Welcome to Toy Talk with Mike and Chad, episode 22.
22.
I'm Mike.
I'm Chad.
We just shot a video, which was your top 10.
Yep.
And I'm going to shoot a video before the end of the week, my best of the year. So what I've got here are the toys I've gotten this past week. It was like a couple of days leading up to Christmas, and then a couple of days since Christmas. So a lot of these came from Big Bad Toy Store. I had a shipment arrive, and it came, I think, the day or two before Christmas, and I haven't had a chance to talk about them yet. I have already talked about them briefly in my best of the year elimination countdown. But anyway, I just wanted to take a little bit more time to showcase each one of these figures. So should we just dive right into that, I guess?
Let's do it.
Okay. So, those of you that watch the channel regularly, you know that DC Multiverse is Chad's thing. Ever since McFarlane Toys took over the DC license, you've been kind of all about it. Me, not so much. I like DC characters, but I bought a lot of stuff from DC Direct back in the day, and I don't really buy many of McFarlane's stuff. But I have a couple DC Multiverse guys here to show you. So, one of them is Hawkman. So this guy is based on his appearance. There's the dog shoving me around. Based on his appearance in the Black Adam movie. So we've talked about this. We actually did a video where we reviewed Black Adam, and I expected it to be a train wreck, and it wasn't. It was fun. You know, it wasn't perfect, but it was fun. And my favorite part about it was Hawkman. I thought his portrayal was like just really cool. And I would totally watch a spin-off movie with him. Doesn't seem like that's going to happen now. But I would. And I went from not caring about this. I thought this was kind of a bland, boring costume. I still kind of do.
Yeah.
Like, holding it up now, you see it. It's just brown on gold. It's a little bland. But
the movie made it better.
Yeah, the actor was not bland. He was very animated, and he was tough. And he was... so yeah, he made this all work. And... I had no interest in buying this figure before the movie, but I went out and bought it after seeing the movie. And yeah, it is a pretty cool figure. My biggest issue with it is like the mace.
So stupid. I hate all McFarlane's weapons are like that.
The weapons are really kind of soft, and the way it was put in the plastic tray, it was kind of warped. So I could maybe take a hairdryer to it and straighten that out. But yeah, it's just really awkwardly bent. But anyway, it's a cool, detailed design. You didn't end up getting him, did you?
I did get him.
You did get him? Okay. Yeah, cool figure.
Yeah, I liked him. It's kind of the same mind frame as you were. I bought him after the movie came out, like the next day, I think. But yeah.
No, something I'm noticing just as I'm holding him, because I really haven't handled this figure very much. His wings seem like they almost want to fall out of the back of him. Mm-hmm. Like, it's really kind of... Like, you had to attach them when you first got them. But I felt they locked in there good, but now I'm feeling like they don't. They kind of want to just... And I don't know. I guess maybe I was expecting a little too much, but I kind of thought the wings, you could have them in flight mode a little bit more. Like, maybe the wings would open up. And I understand that would have cost more money, but I think... The fact that they're articulated, you should even at least be able to spread them out a little bit. But it doesn't really work. They interfere with his helmet.
Terrible design.
His helmet is in the way. And I could kind of force those out of the way because they're soft rubber. But then I feel they'd be warped in no time as well.
Yeah, you don't need multiple.
This is pretty much the best he goes. If you wanted to have him flying around, it's pretty static. So,
That's one thing I will mention. With McFarlane figures is any add-on accessories like that are like obtrusive. They're in the way of some of the articulation, and you can't really get around it. I originally thought I would be a completist with that, but I've been very good lately at getting just figures I want. Otherwise, I would be broke, even more so. He seems to put out like 3 or 4 figures a week, and it's non-stop. So I've just started.
She's insisting. All right.
I've just started picking up what I want, and diversifying on other
Which is good.
properties. Yeah.
Like, how many DC Multiverse Batmans do you have, do you think?
I don't even know. It's ridiculous. They're probably a third.
You know which figure I feel I kind of want? Even though I think it's kind of stupid. Is that War World Superman. Where he's dressed like a 300 Spartan.
Yeah.
And, I don't know. I keep looking at it whenever I see it in the store. And, I think it looks like he looks angry. He looks like it's a good sculpt in the face, but it is Superman like bare chested with like a Superman logo and I don't know, just kind of in chains around his neck, and he's in a little diaper and stuff. I don't know. I can't decide if I think it's totally stupid or kind of awesome.
I think it is stupid. Well, I didn't buy it, but matter of preference.
But did I see I don't know if it's from the same storyline or not, but I think I saw they're doing like a Batman Gladiator figure.
Yeah, something like that. I'm probably not going to pick it up. I say that now, and then they're going to put it out, and it's going to look cool, and I'm going to buy it.
But see, I've already had thought about buying that Superman before. But when I saw Batman Gladiator, I was like, maybe I should get them both. And they'd just be kind of a weird little Elseworlds on my shelf. I might still do it. I don't know. So here's a quick closer look at Hawkman from McFarlane's DC Multiverse. And as you can see, he's like really well sculpted. Even though you can't see much of his face, I think it does look like the actor who portrayed Hawkman in the movie, his name is Aldous Hodge, I believe. And yeah, so you see the costume I'm talking about here. It's kind of plain, but it's pretty true to the movie, which a lot of times these movie figures, they send models to the toy designers before the movie's finalized, and the costumes don't always match the finished product. But in this case, it looks to be pretty screen accurate. So, yeah, like I said, it's kind of a boring costume when you see it here in action figure form, but I think it actually looked pretty good in the movie. And when they did the comic book, prequel, I think it looked pretty good in comic book form too. So, if Hawkman were to adopt this look in the comic books, I think it might actually turn out okay. So I've always liked Hawkman, but I know very little about him. I mostly know him kind of just through, his cartoon appearances and things like that. I used to read the Hawk Girl comic book, but I've never really read Hawkman on any sort of regular basis. There have been a bunch of different Hawkmen over the years. The main one that I'm familiar with is Carter Hall. A few of the other ones I think have been aliens or gods or something. But regardless, I think they've all been white guys. So changing it to an African American, it's a little different, but whatever. And so yeah, there he is. Now you'll kind of see what I'm talking about with his wings. So on the back they just kind of plug in like so, and they plug in like that. But as soon as you start moving them around, it becomes loose really quick. Like I'm not pulling it out. You just kind of see after a couple spins, it just kind of falls out of there. But I guess they're not really meant to be moved around because, as I mentioned, like his helmet, these big wings on his helmet come right into where his wings would be if you wanted to rise those up. And even without the helmet, if you put the wings up, they would bump right into each other. They don't really spread very well for flying poses. There's his wonky mace. So that kind of sucks how bent that is. But yeah, sculpt-wise, paint-wise, I like this gold paint they used on there. It's very metallic-y looking. He doesn't stand super great. Luckily, he comes with a stand. But McFarlane stands aren't super great either because they only accommodate 1 foot. But at least he shouldn't topple over on my shelf. And just for a quick comparison, I do have a Hawkman figure in my collection already. So this is a more standard version of Hawkman. It's based on artist Ed McGuinness' artwork, and I absolutely love Ed McGuinness' depiction of all these DC heroes. He appeared this way in the Batman Superman Public Enemy storyline. Looks great here. So yeah, if I could only keep 1 Hawkman figure in my collection, it would be this one here. But this new one's not too shabby. So I have one other DC figure, Multiverse figure to talk about. This is a figure from 2021. I kind of wanted it when it first came out, but it was you can see he's a bigger figure, compared to Hawkman. He's quite a bit taller. So he was like a $60 figure, and he wasn't worth $60 to me.
No.
But they were 40% off at Toys R Us the other day, so I finally pulled the trigger on him. So this is Steppenwolf from the Justice League movie, the Zack Snyder cut.
Yeah.
And so if you saw Justice League when it first came out in 2017, was it?
Yep.
So that was the Joss Whedon cut, and this was the villain, and he had kind of this weird blue armor, and, he was okay. I liked him in that movie, but he wasn't great. And then when Zack Snyder, the original director, had a chance to redo the movie and put out what would have been his original cut, they amplified the CG on this guy, and they changed his look and gave him this new armor that kind of looks like he's just wearing a cutlery drawer all over him. Yeah. And this is kind of almost in the same camp as Gladiator Superman. I kind of think it's awesome, but I kind of think it's stupid at the same time. Like, the armor is kind of ridiculous.
Yeah. Just a bunch of forks and knives.
Yeah, like, I don't know how we would put this on. It seems like a nightmare to take off at the end of the day.
Oh, he doesn't do it. He's got helpers.
Well, even still. I can't imagine he doesn't get pricked up a million times trying to take this armor off. And his just design is kind of weird. Like, I've talked about it. I hate his small little feet. I'll do an insert where you see it, but like, he's got these rinky-dinky little feet that... Yeah. If he had like these big boots on, I think this figure would be so much cooler. But he's got these like bare little two-toed feet. And then he's got like 10 fingers on each hand, which is... Why would anybody have 10 fingers and 2 toes?
And they're in very awkward places. Like,
yeah, it's awkward.
So this one could definitely be his pinky, but like, what's this guy? Like, those are almost too close to make sense.
It's a weird design, but I don't know. Steppenwolf is a New Gods character, and I just have a soft spot for New Gods. And I'll be honest, I never really liked the comic book appearance. No, because this is a radical redesign. Yeah. In the comic books, Steppenwolf is basically a human-looking guy. So this turned into this giant monster with this brown skin is like a total... Like, fans of the real Steppenwolf would probably be pissed at this design, but I don't know. The New Gods are cool, but I feel there's room for improvement, and I just thought this was cool. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I have mixed feelings on it, but anyway, I bought it, and it's okay. So here's a closer look at Steppenwolf. I just left Hawkman here for a minute so you can see how much taller Steppenwolf is, which kind of justifies his price point, I guess, because he's a deluxe figure or a mega figure. I'm not sure how McFarlane classifies these figures, but anyway, like, he's a good size, but is he worth double the price? Like I said, to me, he wasn't, which is why I waited till he was on sale. Anyway, so if we get him up nice and close here, there is his head design. So it's kind of weird. The head looks actually kind of small. Like, considering how big of a guy he is, his head's about the same scale as Hawkman's. If anything, it's probably a little smaller. Especially if you took this helmet off, you would think this guy has a pretty pea-sized head. Otherwise, he's pretty big. Here's his weird-ass hands that I was talking about. So you can see how many fingers he has. There's like all these little ones. It's not really obvious. Like, I guess this is his thumb, but this kind of looks like a thumb also. So he's got like 2 thumbs and 2 pinkies, which is, fine. He's an alien. But then his feet just really drive me nuts. I really don't understand why he would have these rinky-dinky little 2-toed feet. You'd think if some species had 10 fingers that they would have 10 toes. It just seems like a real inconsistency. And I really think it kind of ruins the design of this figure. Like, his feet are just so dainty. And as you can see, I had him originally on 2 display bases. He only came with 1, but I had to borrow Hawkman's just so I could try and get this guy to stand up. I don't think he'll stand very well on his own. So, when I put him in my display, I'm just going to have to lean him against the back of the shelf. So, now you see here he's got this all silver outfit. I think they could have used a better silver paint. It's probably a little hard to tell, but I think even like Hawkman's gold, it looks more metallic than Steppenwolf's silver. It just doesn't really have that same sheen to it. It looks a little dull. which I think this figure would look a lot sharper if he had a really like nice metallic shine to him. He's a little hard to handle because he does have all these prickly little like nails coming off of him. And sometimes I'm just holding them and then I'm like, ow, like they're kind of sharp. So anyway, like he moves okay. He's well articulated, I guess. He does only have single jointed elbow as opposed to the double jointed of Hawkman and a lot of the other figures. Single jointed knee as well. Now he's got little toe articulation, so both of his toes are individually articulated. But that doesn't help very much because his small feet give him, such limited posing. So it's not like you might want articulated toes on a Spider-Man because you could pose him in all these dynamic designs, but not Steppenwolf. You need all that that groundwork to give him a solid base. You can't start putting him on his tippy toes. So yeah, like I said, I've got mixed feelings about this design, but at the same time I think it's kind of cool, mostly just because he's a New Gods character. I do like Jack Kirby's New Gods, but I always preferred Mantis. Steppenwolf in the comic books, he originally looked like kind of like a Robin Hood type character. My first exposure to him was in the Superpowers toy line and cartoon of the 80s, in which case they redesigned him. But he was still just kind of a dude with a goatee. There was nothing super interesting about him. So at least now, I guess you could say he's got an interesting design. But I don't know if it's a great design. But anyway, that's Steppenwolf. Couple Transformers. Alright, so I just recently got this guy off of Amazon. This is Springer.
Is that the one that your boss bought for you?
Yeah, I wasn't planning on buying this figure, and but then like last week, like one of my last days of work, my boss sent me a $40 gift card for Amazon, and I was like, cool. And I went, and this guy was available, and it said he would ship before the end of the year, and I was like, cool. This is another figure that I can put in contention for my best of the year list. Now, as I think I mentioned earlier, I've already kind of done my final round of eliminations, and Springer didn't make the cut. But he is a cool figure, and I feel like I need a little more time to get acquainted with him, because I basically just took him out of the box and then put him up for contention. And as I was moving around, he was kind of wobbling around, and his arms wouldn't stay in place, and he just felt a little too wobbly, and that's kind of why he didn't move forward. But maybe I just need to get him locked into place to find the right way to sculpt him. But anyway, I already talked about him in that video, so I won't repeat myself really. But this figure did come out originally a couple years ago in a different paint deco, and it was based on his animated look. Okay. I didn't buy it, and I've regretted it ever since. I actually saw him at that New Brunswick toy show, and I thought about buying him there, but I'd already spent too much money, so I didn't buy him there. Anyway, so this is they re-released him in a different paint deco. This paint deco is inspired by the original 80s Springer toy, but I never had the Springer toy, so I don't have any attachment to this color scheme. I only know Springer from the cartoons and comic books, which is what the other toy looked like. Mm-hmm. So I'm glad I got a second chance to buy him at regular retail price and not have to go to the secondary market. But it's in a lesser color scheme. I would have preferred the original one, so I guess I will just continue to regret not buying him when I had the chance. But Springer's a cool character. It's a good figure. So it's been about a week since me and Chad shot that segment where we were talking about these figures. I'm now shooting the inserts. And I think I've had a change of heart about this figure. I think I like it now. I always liked it, but I was still kind of humming and hawing that it wasn't as good as the 2019 release. But after I've had some time to kind of play with this figure and look at the earlier version online and, kind of examine the pictures, and it's hard for me to say that one is really better than the other. And I don't know, maybe I'm just trying to convince myself, but I'm actually think I'm starting to lean into liking this figure better, which is weird. I don't know. I think Springer's just a character that I like, and he's had a lot of different looks over the years. Like there was the vintage toy, there was the vintage 80s comic books from Marvel, then there was the cartoon.
And they were all a little bit different. And then in some of the modern interpretations, as I've said, I'm a big fan of IDW's Transformer comic books. And the version that we got of Springer, based on the IDW look, I was a big fan of. So you can see this Springer here. He's much more stylized. He's a lot more angular, kind of anime inspired. This is more based on his kind of more contemporary look in the comic books. And I thought it was really cool. Which is why I didn't buy the 2019 figure when it first came out. As good as I thought it was, I was still pretty content with this Springer. And I'm really not in the market to replace my Transformer figures every year because there's literally hundreds of characters. So sometimes I just have to accept that, like, this new version might be a little better than the version I have, but I'm content with this one. It's good enough. And that's how I felt at the time with this one. However, because he's so stylized, he looks like kind of an oddball amongst my other G1 characters. And so I have, in the last couple of years, since I passed on that 2019 Springer, really kind of regretted not getting it. Anyway, I missed out on it, so I got this version, which is a repaint of the 2019 version. The biggest changes are, the sculpt is the exact same. It's just the paint work. So this guy has a yellow chest where the other one had green. This guy has a lot more gray on his limbs where the previous one was a lot more green. And yeah, I thought I liked the other version better. But when I look at reviews of it online, a lot of people were complaining about the battle damage paint, which was really popular at the start of the War for Cybertron. So they put a bunch of grime and stuff all over the figure, and they went a little heavy on that stuff on the 2019 Springer. That doesn't really bother me so much, so I don't think that's what would have turned me off. I just think I was more drawn to the more cartoon-accurate version of Springer. But when I look back at some other images of Springer online, and I'm reminded of how he appeared in the comic books and all that sort of stuff, I'm like, it's not like this is that radical of a redesign. This is, this is based on 80s fiction, and it's still, like, it's got all of his main colors too. He's still green and yellow and gray. It's just kind of in different spots than the other figure. And I do like that this one is clean. It doesn't have all that War for Cybertron grime on it. And, I don't know. I kind of dig it. So, maybe if I had spent a little bit more time with it before doing my best of the year list, he might have advanced a little bit farther. I don't think he would have made my best of, but still, it is really cool. I actually really, really like that face sculpt on this guy. And, his weapons are cool. He's got the helicopter blades, because he's a triple changer, so he goes from a robot to a car to a helicopter. The helicopter blades form two swords, which is pretty cool. He does pose well. Like, he's got rocker ankles, so you can, like, give him a very wide stance, and he can hold that pose. So, yeah, very cool. I'm actually quite pleased with this guy.
Then I've got Twin Twist. Do you know this guy? So, the Jump Starters were some Transformers that came out in the 80s. There were two of them, Twin Twist and Top Spin. I actually had Top Spin. Twin Twist was my brother Doug's guy. But they transformed with one move. Their gimmick was that you rev them back on the floor, and then they would pull forward, and when they get to a certain point, they would jump. And it was literally they would go from this, and they'd click up. And that was the whole transformation. So to, like, make him go from a robot to a guy, you just close him, and now he was a tank. So that was their gimmick back then. They don't have that gimmick anymore. He's just a regular Transformer. Anyway, they were both blue and white. So I have new versions of Top Spin and Twin Twist in my modern collection, and I'm quite pleased with them. Anyway, they've taken Twin Twist, and they've re-released him in his Diaclone colors. And Diaclone being the Japanese toy line that he was a part of before Hasbro imported him in the 80s, named him Transformers and everything. So this is, a color scheme that would kind of only the hardcore Transformer fans of Diaclone would really recognize. But even if you don't, I think it's just like, it's a cool dynamic. It's a bold color scheme, blue and red. He stands out. He's, I don't know. What do you think?
Looks like he's got, I look at him, I see Starscream in the face.
Yeah, I guess. His head is kind of Seeker-like, I suppose. Yeah.
Pretty solid, though.
Yeah, he's pretty cool. Like, I would have preferred to get a a top spin over a twin twist, just because top spin is more my guy, but no matter.
So this here is a vintage top spin transformer from 1985. As I said earlier, this is the character I had. My brother Doug had twin twist. Neither of us kept our childhood versions. However, I bought this guy secondhand a few years back, just out of nostalgia's sake, because even though these were some of the most simple Transformers of the vintage line, I still have a soft spot for this guy. I always really liked the design of the jump starters, as simple as it was. So as you can see, for articulation, it was very minimal. Their arms could move forward and backwards. They couldn't move their arms out. They don't have any elbows or wrists. Their legs, they move in unison, and that's only because that's how they transform. With one click, you fold their legs back, and then they become these Cybertronian tanks. And then you were supposed to rev them back, and then they would roll forward and jump up and land like that. That was the idea. It didn't always work. And it doesn't work now. The little rev function doesn't work properly. But anyway, so this is top spin, and twin twist looked a lot like him, except his colors were reversed. He had a blue chest and white limbs. Anyway, so as I said, these guys came out in 1985. When I started collecting Transformers again as an adult, around 2005 or so, I think is when the Classics line began. I really wanted to get new versions of all my childhood Transformers. And it took Hasbro a really, really long time to start making some of the characters I wanted. So, like I said, 2005 I started, and years went by. So I started turning a lot more to third-party companies. These were all the rage for a while, and maybe they still are, although I haven't bought any third-party figures for a few years now. Mostly because Hasbro finally smartened up and started giving me the characters I wanted. But for years, Hasbro was not making any combiners, they weren't making any Dinobots, but all these other unlicensed companies were. So they cost a lot more money, but that's how I was able to get characters in my collection that I wanted. So for the jump starters here, I bought these third-party versions. I can't remember the name of the company that made these, but this is my third-party top spin and my third-party twin twist. So these guys look a lot like the vintage toys. They look a lot like the characters that they're supposed to. One of the main things they're missing is they don't have any Transformer logos like most official Transformers would, because that was just one of the little legalities these companies had to avoid. They couldn't put any copyrighted logos or anything on these third-party toys. So I got these guys in 2013. So I waited about 8 years after I started collecting Transformers before I was finally able to add updated versions of Top Spin and Twin Twist. And I was pretty happy with these figures. It wasn't until 2017 that Hasbro finally gave me updated versions of these characters. So these are the 2017 Combiner Wars versions of Top Spin and of Twin Twist. So the design's a little different. I actually really like this look from the third party where they have their drills on their shoulders, and this guy has his, I don't know, let's call those little shovels on his shoulders. But in the vintage figure, you can see that wasn't actually the case. The little shovel bits and the drill bits actually kind of hung off of their butts and hid into the back of their legs. So with these new designs from Hasbro, again, it's a little different. The drills are just kind of on his back, same as little shovel parts there. So yeah, these guys came out during the Combiner Wars series. They're not actually part of Combiner, but their little gimmick at the time was they became headmasters. So their heads actually pop off. I don't want to break him here, but trust me, it does. His head transforms into a separate little Transformer guy. So anyway, that's what they're all about. So anyway, this new Transformer that we're supposed to be talking about, this is Twin Twist. So this is the exact same figure as this, just repainted in Diaclone colors. So, looks good. I was pleased with this figure, so I'm still pleased with it now. Even though these colors are a lot bolder, I'm kind of partial to the blue and whites because that's how I know these characters. That's how they looked in 1985 when I was introduced to them. So, yeah, I really like this look. If I could only keep one Twin Twist in my collection, it would definitely be this one. But I do like this new design. However, the fact that they're repainting a 2017 figure does kind of make the figure seem a little bit dated, perhaps, because the Transformers had advanced so much during the War for Cybertron years, of 2019, 2021. So to go all the way back to 2017, I don't know. Anyway, as far as, let's see if I can get this guy's head off, because he retains the, I'm really scared I'm going to break it. They don't really even talk about it on the packaging that much, but again, he still retains the little headmaster thing. So you can see he unfolds into another little robot there. Anyway, put that back. So yeah, it's not a bad design. He's got the same two pistols there. The head design is nice. Drills on the back there. The tank mode looks pretty cool, even though I never transform my Transformers. So yeah, cool toy. I probably would have rathered them do a whole new sculpt and maybe improve on any shortcomings that these figures might have. But I really don't think they have that many shortcomings, so I'm fine with this, and it's a pretty cool figure. Now, before we move on, there is just one more thing I guess I should mention, is here's the box. So they come in Hasbro's new windowless boxes. So you just have some artwork on the front, a picture of the toy on the back. There's the Cybertronian tank mode. Now you might have noticed when I did the insert for Springer, his packaging is very similar. And these guys here are both part of a little subset called the Wreck and Rule collection. And these guys are exclusive to, I think, Amazon, and perhaps available on Hasbro's website. I actually found this guy in a GameStop, but GameStop does carry a lot of store exclusives, so you're not going to find them at Walmart or Target anyway, but they are exclusive to some stores. I think perhaps it might be Amazon, but whatever. That's where I got him, on Amazon. But these guys were advertised as having kind of a build-a-figure function. So like Marvel Legends, when you buy a whole wave of figures, you get an extra arm and an extra leg in each figure, so you can build an extra bonus figure. These guys have one of the cheapest build-a-figure gimmicks I've ever seen. Each of them comes with a piece of a hammer, which is supposed to be representative of the Wreckers, which is the name of the sub-team that these guys are both members of. So one of these figures came with this little piece of cardboard. Another one came with this. If I were buying the other figures in the Wreck and Rule collection, I would end up with another like 3 or 4 pieces of cardboard. And apparently you would fold these all around, and this is part of the handle, I guess, and you would end up with kind of an origami hammer made of cardboard. So, super lame. This stuff is just going right in the garbage for me. But anyway, that aside, they're both cool figures. And then I've got this Transformer. So this guy they called Magnificus. And so he is a Transformer that turns into a microscope. And if you're a Transformers fan, you're probably familiar with Perceptor.
Yep.
And he is the red and blue Autobot that turns into a telescope. He was in the cartoons pretty heavily, the comic books, and all that sort of stuff. Now, back in the 80s, there was transforming toys everywhere. Like, sure, there was Transformers and there were GoBots, but you could go into any, like, Radio Shack, any dollar store, any corner store, and, like, they had some sort of knockoff Transformer. I don't know if you can see them on the wall behind me here, but there's some Transformers I have pinned up on the wall back there that came from an Esso gas station. Those were called Esso Robot Racers. Yeah. It was like such a fad and such a trend that literally there were transforming robots everywhere. Like, I had a couple of figures from a line called Select Converters. Mm-hmm. Have you ever heard of them?
Yeah.
I really like those. Anyway, they were everywhere.
What a time to be alive.
It was a great time. So, Perceptor, the original toy from the 80s, was red and blue. You know, he was in Transformers packaging. But I think I got for Christmas probably one year when I was quite young. I don't really remember. But my Perceptor looked like this. He was black. He was gray. He had a face shield instead of a nose and mouth. And to be honest, I think the original Perceptor might have had a face shield instead of a nose and mouth too, like he had. But regardless, my color scheme was off. And I always assumed I had some sort of knockoff, of Perceptor. I didn't really understand what I had.
And to this day, I'm still not entirely sure what it was. Like, I don't know what the packaging looked like. It definitely wasn't the official Transformers branding. But what we're looking at here is Perceptor came from a different toy line in Japan. So the reason why Transformers, some of them are big, some of them are small, some of them are bugs, some of them are tape decks, and some of them are cars, it's because Hasbro imported all these different transforming lines from Japan that were unrelated in Japan and mashed them all together under the brand Transformers. And so characters like him and like Soundwave and stuff that were supposed to be like human-sized accessories, they weren't part of the Diaclone line like Twin Twist. He was part of a series called Microman. And so in the Microman line, the microscope guy was gray and black. So when they brought him over to North America, red and blue, he became Perceptor. I don't know how I ended up with a Microman version because he seems like he would have been more obscure. I'm sure my parents didn't go out and buy me some high-end Japanese import. So I probably had a knockoff of the original Microman. Anyway, I no longer have that Transformer because I got rid of most of my childhood Transformers when I was like 12 or 13. But I've always kind of just had a soft spot for this black and gray version of Perceptor. And so Hasbro just re-released him. This is a repaint of the Studio Series Perceptor, which was already an awesome figure. And yeah, now he's got a name now. His name is Magnificus. He's got a new backstory and all that sort of stuff. And I love it. So, any thoughts?
He's magnificent.
Yeah.
So here is a closer look at both Magnificus and Perceptor. I've previously reviewed Perceptor a couple of months ago when I first got him. Anyway, I think this is an amazing figure. It looks like Perceptor leaped right out of the cartoon. It's super cartoon accurate. He doesn't have a whole bunch of extra kibble or anything hanging off of him. He's very clean, very smooth. A little bit of hollow parts in there, but otherwise a really cool figure. And as soon as I got this guy, I thought he might be a contender for my best figure of the year. Now, a year or two ago, I got some reaction figures from Super 7, and so they made Perceptor, and you can see he's pretty good too. He's not quite as accurate to the cartoon because he's got black instead of blue and stuff, but I was pretty stoked about this reaction figure. I think these guys are a lot of fun. And then on our Black Friday sale, Super 7 released some special edition repaints of the reaction figures, and they gave us this black and red version of Perceptor. And I was really stoked to get this, even though he was kind of expensive. I had to buy him directly from Super 7's website. So he didn't really cost any more than a standard reaction figure, but he cost me a little bit more in shipping, ordering directly from them. And but I had to have this because it was just a throwback to the black and gray Perceptor I had as a kid, which I never thought I would see an update of. However, one thing that was kind of a bummer of this figure is you see how he's got a mouth and nose because he shares the same face as Perceptor, and this is how Perceptor looked in the cartoon, so it would make sense that this is how they sculpted him, and then for a repaint they just kind of took the easy way out and just changed the colors, but they did not change his faceplate. But this time around, this figure is the exact same, so it's already an awesome base figure, but they gave him the face-plated head, which is the head that I remember. It's actually accurate to the vintage Perceptor toy, which was not accurate to the original cartoon. And so I'm really pleased to have both these guys looking the way they look. Perceptor in his red and blue, looking like his cartoon, face, and then having Magnificus. You see here he's a Decepticon. They've got him painted with some Decepticon logos. And yeah, I just love that I have this guy in my collection now. Super cool. Love them both.
Couple Marvel Legends I'll quickly talk about. I've got the Mr. Knight, which I know he's just kind of a white blur here, but I'll do an insert. But this is one of Moon Knight's personas.
Yep. Disney Plus version. Yeah.
So this is based on the live action Disney Plus show, which is fine. I would have preferred a comic book version. That's how I feel about every character.
I did, after you posted your last video, I did go look up the correct version from the comics, and I think I would agree there. I like that version a lot better than...
Yeah, it's pretty similar.
It's close.
Because at least this one, I find, say with a character like Star-Lord, I don't have a comic book Star-Lord in my collection. I have a movie one,
Yeah.
but I see it and all I see is Chris Pratt when I look at it. This one here, I don't see Oscar Isaac because he's got a mask on and everything. So, you know, it's not nearly as jarring. It looks pretty close to what the comic book one... If anything, the comic book one would probably just be a little simpler. He wouldn't have the texture in his clothes and stuff. So it's a minor gripe. But yeah, I would always take a comic book version over an MCU version if I had the choice. But this whole Mr. Knight persona, he's only been around for a few years. Like, Moon Knight has had multiple personalities since basically forever. But yeah, this one is relatively new. I think it was like Garth Ennis maybe that introduced it in his run a couple years ago. But anyway, it was really cool. I really like the look of Moon Knight in a 3-piece suit. And yeah, this figure is pretty cool. Another figure I got from Marvel Legends is the Retro Scorpion. Mm-hmm. So, you want to talk about him?
Yeah, so I pre-ordered this mother effer on Amazon back in April. And was excited to get him. He released... 3 weeks ago now? And anyways, the date came where he should have been shipped, and it was like stuck if you're looking at the tracker. And then about 4 days later, it said they canceled the order because there was not enough supply. And I was like, I pre-ordered this 8 months ago. Like, come on. So, anyways, I forgot I had one in Big Bad Toy Store. And Big Bad Toy Store charged my credit card.
Yeah.
And then it said it wasn't approved. And I was like, there's money on my credit card. Definitely is. So they went to my default card. And that didn't go through. And I was like, there's money on that one too. So I don't know what's going on. So both of them got canceled. So I didn't get a Scorpion.
Hopefully he'll be readily available.
Yeah. Like, I love this guy. He's one of my favorite Spider-Man villains. The tail's a bit weird for me, and I know you talked about that too.
Well, yeah, the thing, like, I did, if you watched my video where I was doing my last round 6 of eliminations for my best of the year, I eliminated Scorpion. Yeah. It was a tough cut, because he's a great figure. And so I'm going to repeat myself a little bit here, but, like, this is the second version of Marvel Legends Scorpion in the current Marvel Legends line. And it's a big improvement over the last one. Like, the last one had all green, and I'll do a split screen or whatever, but he was like a darker green, almost like a metallic green. And the mask came down right over his mouth and nose, so it's just like you could see his teeth kind of like through his mask. And it's like, I don't know, it didn't really make much sense. Like, how does this mask work? So this one here, not only did they paint him in his like 90s animated colors, but they opened up his face mask so you can see his like flesh. And it's definitely an improvement. I like it way better. And I don't know, maybe it was a mistake to cut him off my list, but I think the thing that's hurting him is those lips.
Yeah, I disagreed with your choice to eliminate him, but that's...
Yeah.
It's a tough call when you get down to that many figures, and...
It is.
You know, the lips are definitely weird.
And it's not that bad, but Hasbro has been having a tendency lately to paint their lips on like their male figures like a dark pink or something, and it looks like they're wearing like really heavy lip gloss or something. And Scorpion kind of suffers from that a little bit.
Maybe Scorpion does wear really heavy lip gloss.
And, no judgment, but it's just, I don't know. I think it does hurt. It hurts the figure a little bit, but otherwise, this is a really, really good figure.
Yeah.
If I was doing my top 30 of 2022, he'd probably
made it.
Well, I don't know. Maybe that's a lie because I have 60 figures over there to choose from. But it's pretty cool. It was a tough cut. This is one of the tougher figures to cut from my best of the year list. It's good.
So here's a closer look at both Moon Knight and Scorpion. We're going to be pretty quick about this because this video is running pretty long. But here is the Moon Knight. So you can see what I was talking about there with all the different kind of textures to him. Like, he's got this stitching up through his mask, which is true to the Disney Plus series, but not really the comic books. Also, like his vest here, it's got a texture to it, which is different from the jacket. He's got all this detail in the lapels and everything there. So yeah, pretty detailed sculpt, at least in the front. Pretty plain from the back. But yeah, he's pretty cool. I like him. He's got double jointed elbows, double jointed knees. All that stuff's becoming pretty standard. So, you know, he moves well. I'm going to guess that this is mostly a new sculpt. Like, we've got lots of characters with suits lately. I don't buy all of them, but like some recent ones I got, like Mr. Negative and Hammerhead and Jigsaw. I haven't done a side-by-side comparison, but I know none of them had suits quite this this fancy with the vests and everything, the double buttons up front. So yeah, I'm going to guess that this is probably largely a lot of new parts. And he's pretty cool. Now maybe before I get rid of Mr. Knight here, I'm just going to do a quick comparison with some of the other Moon Knight figures we got previously. So the first one we got was this guy here. This is kind of a more contemporary take on Moon Knight, where he's got a mostly black outfit. And then he's got these like armored pieces kind of randomly covering him. And then we got, this is a more classic Moon Knight in the all white. So it's pretty cool now that I'm getting all these different looks for Moon Knight. They're all pretty unique. And yeah, I'm glad I have them all. One last thing on Moon Knight before we move on is that you see I've got him with a closed fist and an open fist where he's holding this club. Anyway, he came with alternate hands and a secondary club. So you can give him 2 closed fists if you want to, or 2 gripping hands, and then you could have him holding both of his weapons there. So that's pretty cool. Now, as for Mr. Scorpion here, he's a very cool figure. I like this guy a lot. Like, nice detail there in the face. He's got a very kind of angry scowl on him. But as I mentioned to Chad, the thing that probably bumped this guy out from being a contender for my best of the year list, at least in part, is those lips. I really don't like how dark the lips are painted on him. And we're seeing that more and more on figures now that they're doing this like digital face printing. You know, sometimes that can look really good. Other times it's a little off. Like here, I think his eyes look pretty good. When you get too close, they start looking a little digital, I guess. I can't think of a better word, but yeah, they start they're a little less crisp the closer you get to his digital eye paint. But yeah, don't love those lips. Anyway, what I do love is this costume. I really like the colors they used here. So you can see he's got the wired tail, so that moves around. You can pose it. It does make him a little awkward to display. He takes up a lot of room, and you can kind of use this as an anchor to help him stand. But then you can see how much room he takes up. You got to keep him that far out from the back of your shelf or something. So yeah, it might take a little while to find a pose that really works for this guy. Now for comparison, here is the previous Scorpion that we were talking about. So I think that this is the same sculpt. They might have changed the face, but I don't know. It's hard to say. I think it might be the same head, actually. But you can see what I was talking about here is I really didn't like how the whole face is green. Like, it looks like his lips are green and everything. So realistically, because the Scorpion is just a normal looking guy when he's outside of his costume. So the fact that you would get a costume to wrap around your lips and everything so tightly like that, it's, you see that kind of stuff in comic books. Scorpion actually does appear that way sometimes. So there is precedent for it, but I do prefer it the other way, where you can see his like skin around his mouth and nose. And so also, as I mentioned before, this look here is based not necessarily on his original comic book look. Scorpion's had lots of different looks over the years. This one is pretty classic, but it's more or less based on the Toy Biz figure from the 90s, as well as his look in the animated 90s cartoon. So here is the Toy Biz Scorpion figure, and I love this figure. This was one of my favorite figures in the 90s Spider-Man line, and it's one of those figures where I just thought they nailed it. Like, this is, in my mind, basically the perfect Scorpion figure. Like, sure, it's a figure of its time, so he doesn't have double jointed knees and double jointed elbows. He's definitely not as posable. Like, his arms, they can't go out to the side. They can only move forward and backward. His tail is not wired. It's kind of limited because he has a play feature where you move his arms, or this arm, and his tail would swing, which I don't necessarily love. I don't need play features like that in my toys. But anyway, I loved the design of this guy. I loved that head sculpt. I loved the way they painted him. So I think that's another reason why this figure just didn't quite make my my best of the year list. Is it just had such a high bar to meet. Like when I found out they were going to make another Scorpion based on this figure, you know, I was hoping it would be just as awesome. But I don't know. And it probably is. In many ways, it's better. But I don't know. I just loved this figure so much. I don't know if that one quite lives up to my expectations. Anyway, cool figure, regardless. As I was editing this video and shooting all the B-roll with the close-ups of the toys, I realized that it was definitely going to run well over an hour. And I know I'll definitely lose most of your attention. A lot of you stop watching usually after about 5 minutes, I think. But asking you to stick around for more than an hour is definitely, that's a lot. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut this video off short. I still have footage of me and Chad talking about these figures. So I'm going to post that as a separate video in a few days. So if you're curious to hear our thoughts on any of these guys, make sure you come back for that. But otherwise, I think I'm just going to sign off this episode from here. So thank you very much for watching. Please make sure to like and subscribe. And I'll see you next time. Ciao.